You might want to study with Tom. You might want to spend a little more time studying. I told Tom to study. I told Tom to study harder. This isn't a new study. We need to study this matter more carefully. That's a matter for future study. Is Tom studying now? Is Tom studying French now? I read a study that suggests the same thing. It's clear that you need to study harder. It's clear you need to study harder. Tom wanted to study French, but Mr. Jackson suggested that he study English instead. Let's apply for a grant to study that. Tom studied the reports. Tom is a quick study. We're studying modern poetry in class this month. Tom is in his room studying. According to a new study, that's true. Tom spends a lot of time studying birds. Tom loves studying French. Tom says studying French is a lot of fun. Tom says that studying French is a lot of fun. I told Tom to study more. I've already read this study. I have to get back home and study. I have to get back home and study for a test. I have to get back home and study for an exam. Where do you like to study? Tom often goes to the park to study. Some well-known scientists say that study is flawed. My study faces the park. My office faces the park. Tom wants to study music in college. Tom began to study French just last year. Tom's study has dark-colored walls. Tom goes to Bible study once a week. How many hours do you study every day? That's something we should study. Tom wanted to study music in college, but his parents wanted him to study medicine. That wasn't examined in the study. Tom went back to studying as soon as Mary left the room. That's what this study is all about. Tom and Mary were studying together all afternoon. Our studies showed the exact opposite. What kind of research are you doing? Tom is studying pediatrics. The findings of this study were no surprise. This study's findings were no surprise. We urged Tom to do that. I told Tom that he should study harder. I have to study for 3 tests tonight. Mr. Jackson advised Tom to study harder. Participation in this study is voluntary. Tom is in the kitchen studying. That study was based on inaccurate data. That study was based on incomplete data. Tom prefers studying after dinner. Tom prefers studying in the evening. This isn't the first study of its kind. Tom is in his study writing a report. Many studies have been done on identical twins. Mr. Jackson showed his students how to put out a fire with a fire extinguisher. Since the traffic lights weren't working, there were policemen directing traffic at every intersection. Don't disturb Tom. He's sleeping. Tom feels guilty. Tom often feels guilty. I'll buy some bottled water for you. Was Tom good? Who asked Tom that question? There was a man on the street that tried to sell me flowers. There was a man on the street that tried to sell flowers to me. Who helps Tom? Who needs Tom? You're a cheapskate. How many people are in the lounge? Tom knows the manager. I hope your death will be long and painful. I'm not sure that most people understand the depth of cruelty that people are capable of. I knew that Tom was a traitor. Nobody wants Tom here. It's not always clear where an idea originated. Tom must be in seventh heaven. You're not lost. A new study says that coffee is good for you. Tom studied psychiatry. Tom studied psychology. Tom studies in the park. Tom studied art in college. Last month, Tom went to Australia. Tom told me Mary studied French. Tom told me that Mary studied French. Tom wished that he had studied harder. Tom wished he'd studied harder. We're studying this trend. This trend is something that we're currently studying. A study in 2013 showed similar results. The study lasted a little over 3 years. I don't understand your logic. What's the logic behind this?